Hey there, and welcome to the second episode of Cleanup Crew. Today's game we will be diving into is Psychonauts 2. As usual, I am joined by my brother Josh. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing well. Yep.
Cool.
Let's dive into this. Psychonauts 2.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because, as you are well aware, and as most people are well aware, Psychonauts 2, or the developer of Psychonauts 2, Double Fine, was actually purchased by Microsoft. And because of that, you and I both originally started playing this game on Game Pass. Because
Yep.
what system did you play this game on?
I played it on the Series S.
Okay, you played it through the Series S. And I originally started playing this game on Game Pass on PC. And because I need my games to look and run as great as possible, I was like, no, I can't run this game at 30 FPS on my computer. Because my computer's fine, but I have a 4K monitor in front of me. So I was trying to run the game at 4K, and then I tried doing scaling the resolution and all that stuff, like auto scaling the resolution, and it just didn't really run too well. My computer's GPU is kind of old, so that's kind of what's holding me back. But I eventually switched over to the PS5, and unlike you, who has a next-gen version, I'm still stuck with the PS4 version. So even though I'm running on the PS5 and you're running on the Series S, your version of the game was technically better than the one I ran.
I didn't realize that it was PS4 version.
Yeah, so they didn't actually make a PS5 version. That was the benefit of having one of the new Xbox systems, because I guess we can just dive right into performance, because with the PS4 and PS5, it ran the PS5 ran the PS4 version in backwards compatibility mode, and that was at 1440p at 60 FPS. And I'm pretty sure those are the PS4 Pro numbers. Maybe I don't remember. I think it's like 1080p 30 on regular PS4, and I think it's four. I don't quite remember, but it's all I know is that on the PS5 it ran at 1440p at 60 FPS. And what about you for the Xbox Series S? What did you run at?
So I have this 1080p display, so I wasn't running the highest resolution that the game could be played in, but I believe it was 60 FPS
Okay.
on the Series S is
Okay.
what I was playing at, and I was surprised how much how clean the game could run on this small console I can pick up with two fingers.
I, I know, I'm just blown away. Because I think if you weren't running at on that 1080p monitor, I think it's still, I think you still get the full render, but what is it called, super sampling, where it scales it down to that resolution. So I think the game is still running at, on the Series S, it's supposed to run at 1620p, and it's just because of that. It's a scaled down version of the Series X. So the Series X plays it at full 4K 60 FPS, but the Series S, I guess, just essentially almost halves that, a little bit less, or however that math works out to be. But I think it still runs at 1620p. It's a weird resolution, 1620p, but you're just seeing it at 1080p. If I understand how that works.
Probably. I mean, I just know my display, so
Okay.
so yeah.
I did read that the Series S and Series X both had a 120 FPS option. So anyone that's running a 120 hertz monitor or TV even would be able to do that. Now, obviously, your monitor was just 60 FPS or 60 hertz, right?
Yeah, it's just standard.
Okay. Okay. So I'm still haven't played any game at 120 FPS because I don't have a high refresh rate monitor. I'd love to try it someday. I guess up till now, haven't had that luxury. Have you ever played on a high refresh rate monitor before?
I haven't, but it's something I'm looking into for TV wise.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So you're moving and you're gonna look at getting a new TV and new entertainment center and all that. So yeah, I'm gonna be super jealous if you if you get a high refresh rate TV.
Yeah, they make some pretty affordable models for having the features of like HDMI 2.1 and 120 hertz.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, you'll have to give this game a boot it up again and see how it runs. Because I'm just curious if that's like within the menu options. I'm not. I would assume so.
Probably, yeah. That's probably my guess is that there's probably an option in game.
So there's not really too much more to talk about performance wise. The little bit that I was on PC, because I played through about the first level on PC, and it was pretty bog standard settings. Uh, colorblind mode, um, usual shadow, anti-aliasing, resolution. It was all those normal settings were there, and I think on the consoles it actually did have accessibility options, which was kind of cool. I did see all the colorblind mode options, and I know Microsoft's making a big push of that. So, did you go through and look at any of those, or?
I didn't, but I'm not too surprised because I mean I've been playing Microsoft games like Sea of Thieves and games like that lately, and they have so many different accessibility options. So I'm not too surprised because I mean they make their own controller that can help people with disabilities, and I know that Microsoft out of all the hardware and software gaming make the big push for that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I am glad to see that these companies are actually pushing for accessibility options. I know like, that topic came up with in our last episode with Skyward Sword, where we wish that Nintendo made a bigger push, like Microsoft and Sony do. But so it was refreshing to boot up the menu and be like, oh well, here's a crap ton of options for anyone who needs anything. So next up, I guess we can talk about some gameplay and mechanics that the game had to offer. I have a few things written down here, mainly like things to do with powers and how the game plays and the platforming of that Raz can go through given his circus background and some of the enemies we encounter. I know it's a little bit mismatch, a hodgepodge kind of thing, but I figure, do you want to start with some of the powers that are in the game? I guess light
Yeah,
spoilers if you are at all concerned with finding out some of the new abilities, but it's kind of in the marketing up to this point, so nothing too spoilery.
so yeah, so the powers in this game were quite entertaining for each and every one of them. What there's like maybe 10 different powers,
Yeah, something
something
like
like that.
that. And I think it's, if my memory serves me correctly, there are there's four new ones, I think, from compared to the last game. Now you didn't actually play the previous game, which we'll get into once we start talking about some of the story stuff and things like that. But you didn't play the previous one, so all of these were new to you.
Yeah, no, I I've played maybe 5 minutes of the original game. So yeah, I the entire every mechanic in this game was completely new to me, but genuinely enjoyable. I found myself just doing basic attacks when it came to fighting in this game, like the melee,
Mm-hmm.
just basic punching. I did find the Psy Blast to be very easy when it came to like ranged attacks.
Yeah, no, I really liked using the side blast. I'm right there with you where I think out of all of the abilities, the one I used the most was melee, obviously, because that's like your main damage dealer. But I use side blast a lot too. But I think it's kind of funny because I ran into a situation where there's this mechanic where you can buy pins, and these pins are like modifiers to your abilities. Like there's a pin I bought that changed your melee swing to, instead of being, was it orange originally, I think?
It's yeah, I think it's orange.
So instead of being orange when you swing your hand and like actually did like a karate chop motion, it made it into a rainbow, and I just thought that was more entertaining than just the standard orange. And it's the same thing with the levitation ability. You could buy a pin that changes the color of the little ball you generate in order to bounce around and float down from high places. I made mine blue just because I thought that was kind of cool.
I actually made my levitation ball green at the start until I realized that it takes up like one of three spaces in like for like the power-ups that you can equip.
Yeah, no, I that's and I that I have a funny story about that, but yeah, I found that super annoying where you had the ability to get all these different pins and so many modifications and upgrades almost, but then you're stuck with only picking three. So if you wanted to experience it, I mean, I guess it's designed that way where they wanted you to like rotate them constantly.
Mm,
But I don't know. I felt like maybe five or even four would have been really nice.
that's true. Yeah. I did find myself switching them out and wishing I had still just kind of power-ups that would just help me more. But it was like I also wanted to enjoy the design changes that you can get
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
just
yeah.
from doing this. So it's like the projection where it's a paper the Raz that had like the Gur voice.
It's like the Paper Mario version of Raz.
Yeah, and it had the voice of Gur, which is
Wait, is that who it
amazing
was?
to
Because I
me.
recognized it and I was
Yeah,
like, who is this?
that's what it was. Yeah,
Oh,
it
that's
was
so funny.
because it Raz is like Zim, right? So it's like it's his same voice
Wait,
for
is that
Gur.
that's not the same voice actor?
Yeah,
It is?
yes.
No way. I had no idea.
Yeah,
Like
that's
genuinely, I didn't know. Oh my god.
yeah, so that's something that I enjoyed throughout this game is that he just sounds like Invader Zim, and then the paper version of Raz in this projection power
hmm
it was had like this a really annoying voice, which was just like it was just Gur to me, and and then I had to spend my what's it called, the pink things you collect.
it's a kind of mineral, the psi something.
Yeah,
It's a kind
yeah.
of
So
yeah, kind of collectible because in the first game there were arrowheads, like psychic arrowheads you can collect. But in this one, instead of arrowheads, it's just a mineral.
it's like an
I
ore kind
it's
of
like an
looking
ore.
thing.
Yeah, I just can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, so I spent all of mine towards the end of the game just to have like a the pixel like kind of 8-bit version of that power up, and it was so good.
That's funny. I had no see. That was one thing I didn't do too much of is buying the pins and the upgrades. So I didn't even realize that was an ability you could get.
Yeah.
Because I actually screwed myself over. Because in the beginning of the game, I bought a few of those and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I equipped them and I went about my went about just playing the game. And I think it was like a fourth of the way through the game, maybe maybe a little bit more. I was like, why the heck is Psy Blast not hurting people? I was like, what these enemies like? What's going on? And then I realized I was like, oh my god, I have the stun version of that equipped. So instead of the Psy
Oh,
Blast damaging them, it stuns them. And I was getting so upset because like, why does this happen? Like, why can't I shoot them from a distance? I was like, and then I found out, I was like, oh, I have that equipped. I'm like, I'm such an idiot. Yeah, no, I think they're really cool. Yeah, out of all the powers, do you think Psyblast would be your favorite, or do you have one that's
I would say telekinesis is was my favorite because I found myself anytime I got into combat, I was just grabbing everything in the environment and around me and just throwing them at the enemies. That's like
really?
I got an achievement for like uh taking the what's it called, like the big hammer from
Oh,
like the
you taking
judge
the
enemy
gavel from the
gavel,
judge?
yeah, and using it against them. And I
That's
was like,
so
oh,
funny.
I got that achievement. I was just like, oh, because I always found myself using this ability that just grabs whatever is like a object that you can pick up, and I just kept throwing it at them to do most damage throughout every battle.
You know, it's interesting because I think it was towards the end of the game is when I started actually using the telekinesis. Because for the majority of the game, I used the pyrokinesis, so creating the big fireball around you,
Mm,
and then I would just light enemies on fire constantly, and then I'd run around and melee them, and then run away from them. Um, yeah, it wasn't towards the end once those judges were introduced, because then yeah, I got the same thing where I pulled the gavel away and I threw it back at them, and I got the trophy. I was like, oh. Cool. I was like, okay, that's cool. I didn't know that was a thing. So I kind of kept it spoiler free by not looking at the trophies or the achievement list or anything, just because I wanted to be like go into it with no expectations. Just if I got a trophy, cool. If I didn't, also cool. Just enjoy the game.
That's basically how I went about it until like towards the end of the game where it was like, oh, I knew I needed to level up a bit more and collect some things. I was just like, well, I'll go out of my way and check the achievements and see what I should go try to complete.
That's
Some
cool.
things though, I found out that I was already too far in the game that I couldn't go back and do some missions
Oh.
because it didn't let me go back to them once I got towards the end of the game, and I was like, oh,
Oh, that's right. So I'm thinking once you finish the game, not really spoilers, it kind of opens up and lets you go about and like wrap things up whenever you want. I'm thinking
it
at
didn't
that
though.
point, it still won't let you go back.
Yeah, no, because I tried getting an achievement after I finished the entire game, and it wouldn't let me go back for
Oh,
one
wow.
for
Okay.
one for one for one optional mission that would have given me an
Oh,
uh
that
achievement.
sucks.
Yeah,
Dang. So, okay, so there are technically missable achievements and you have to go get them the first time round.
yeah, pretty
Oh,
much.
that stinks. Well, that's cool. Telekinesis. I actually wouldn't expect that. That was. I genuinely didn't think you would enjoy that one. I don't know why, but it just reminds me. The way you described it, it reminds me of Control. And I don't know if you've ever played Control before, but
Nah,
it's a similar kind of concept in Control where it's like you can just pick things up and just hurl them at enemies. I think that's a game you should check out at some point because it's really fun.
yeah, yeah, I like that. I just like that attack because it was quick.
Yeah,
Didn't like take very long to pick things up, and yeah, it was fun.
cool. Oh, and the one use of of telekinesis that really bothered me was it's in the very first level, so I'm not marking this as a spoiler. You're in Lobato's brain, and you have to unzip the teeth. That it makes my stomach turn just thinking about it. It was so gross.
Yeah. I was like, I did that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game for me.
Yeah, one
I'm
hundred
just like,
percent.
okay, like this is what they were intending. Okay,
I'm sure you would never actually be able to guess my favorite.
Is it the clairvoyance?
My favorite is actually Time Bubble. I loved Time Bubble because towards the end
Really?
of the game, yeah, I spammed that, and then if you can use them in combination, I would do Time Bubble, I would do the pyrokinesis, and then I'd run away, and then I'd blast them with Psy Blast, and then if they were still there, I'd run in and hit them with melee.
That's the final boss you're saying?
No, 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 no. Just that's how I would treat. That's how I would treat every final encounter with just random enemies.
Oh, okay. Because I
I'd
was
pop
gonna
the
say at
time
the
bubble because it would slow everything down.
yeah, I was gonna say the final boss. I took advantage of that time bubble and the side blast. Just those two. That's how I was able to make it through that. But yeah, no. If I were to talk about my favorite.
Hmm.
I would say besides telekinesis,
Okay.
like one of my favorites. So the clairvoyance when you're not in combat and you can just go up to animals or you go up to just people that are just around, like just NPCs,
Hmm.
to see just how it would you could change and see yourself through their eyes. I was so confused the first time I did it. I was like, this was before you had like the paper res and stuff like that where
Yeah.
and I was just like, why does my character look like this through their eyes? I was so confused, and then I realized that, oh, it's like the first guy I used it on, he was seeing he was seeing Raz as bacon,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
I was gonna ask
what?
you about the bacon guy if you remember him.
Yeah, and I was like, he had bacon floating all around his head, and through his vision. And then he saw Raz as just a giant piece of bacon. I was like, "What? This was the first time I used this ability." I was like, "What is this?"
It's funny because if you because some of those NPCs would like move around and you could go see them talking and interacting with people. He would go talk to a woman every once in a while, and I think they had some kind of flirtatious thing going on, if I remember correctly. But if you looked at her with clairvoyance, Raz would turn into a cigarette like vending machine.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
was really
that
crazy.
that yeah, that one cracked me up. And then when you did, I think it was the mouse or one of the mice. I can't remember. You were like a mouse. You were like a person in a giant rat costume.
I saw that. I think that was the rat in like the mail room in the
Yeah, that one, I was like, what the heck is this? So I did take that clairvoyance ability, and I went around and I tested it on a bunch of different people.
Yeah, it definitely was just something to just play around with. It was good.
Yeah, totally,
And
totally.
then you got to find like some treasures in some of them, whereas like there's a spot you could like investigate.
Oh yeah,
And
it would pop up
so
that little triangle, and you'd go move over to it.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. I didn't utilize that enough because at a certain point I just quit collecting money, and I was like, that's okay.
Yeah, I found myself collecting like lots of cards that I would just exchange for a new rank up.
Yeah, I did do. I don't remember what my final rank was. I think it was in the 50s though.
Yeah, I finished with 55.
55. I think we were probably about the same then. And it's wild because maybe I did. I don't. I might have been higher than that. I can't remember. I'll put it on the screen if I remember to do it. What level I got to. I remember there. I don't remember which ability it was, but there you can upgrade your powers based on what level you are. So as you collect more psi cards and psi challenge markers, you level up, and through those levels you get level points, and you can put those points into certain abilities. And it's like, oh, this level or this new ability or whatever, this power up to this ability is 3 level points or whatever, and you could level them up. There was one, I think it was mental connection, but it might have been clairvoyance. I can't remember. One of the two, you had to get to level 102 in order to even unlock that. And I was like, holy crap.
Really? I
Yeah.
don't remember seeing that. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I for the most part I upgraded nearly all of the things to max or what I could every time I would just have a long session of playing, I would at the end of the session I'd go and upgrade everything.
That's pretty much how I handled it too. Like I would pull up the that menu to be like, okay, what am I doing right now? And I like look at my. I think I usually did in the beginning because I'd look at my quest log or whatever and see like, oh, what the heck am I doing right now? And they're like, oh, I'll go spend these points.
Yeah.
Because I think you could probably get through most of the game without even leveling that stuff up. It's pretty generous with not needing all that stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
So, kind of going off of the powers and abilities that you have to use those powers and abilities to fight enemies. And in this game, there's tons of really cool and I don't know what the word is, like metaphor enemies, basically. So you have
Mm.
enemies like regrets, doubts, bad ideas, panic attacks, bad moods. So it's so funny because the original game, sensors were in it, and I think there was more, but I just it's been years since I played that game all the way through. I think I probably played it all the way through in like 2006, maybe. So I mean, it was it was a really long time ago. Maybe even it might have even been 2005 when it first came out. But
Yeah.
I just yeah no I remember seeing the sensors, and that's all I can recall right now. But definitely some of these, like the panic attack and the judge, were brand new to this game. Do you have
Yeah,
a
it's kind of cool how they transitioned from like the something in the story was happening, whereas like for example like the panic attack like in the brain that you're kind of exploring through uh the person in their mind would be having a panic attack and it would spawn this new enemy.
yeah, I thought that was a really cool kind of gameplay mechanic also. So same thing with the bad mood. It would be a character, you'd be in their brain and they'd be in a bad mood, and this bad mood enemy would pop up and you'd have to figure out how to take care of it. The only one I thought was a little weird, but I still appreciated, was the judge. And I think in the context of the level it lived in, or it came about in, made sense. But it's just that was the one character that I thought was a little odd. I really enjoyed it, but I just thought it was a little strange.
Yeah, my the enemy I hated the most was the enabler. That is
Really?
where I used the pyrokinesis
Mm-hmm.
most because I found it was just easier to set them on fire and they'd run and you could attack the enemies while they're burning and can't do anything. And then it was probably took like 3 times of using that attack to kill one of them, but it just made the fight so much longer than it needed to be just because it's these stupid enemies that made it so you couldn't attack all
Yeah,
the other ones.
it just basically yeah buffed them so much. Yeah, I don't know. I thought they were okay. They were annoying. I agree. I think my least favorite in design and fighting them was the bad mood. I didn't care for them at all. I thought they were kind of not cumbersome. I get like it's supposed to be a metaphor for like, oh, bad moods are sometimes hard to figure out and they come out of nowhere. Like I get the whole thing like that. But trying to solve how to fight them, but then every single time you fought one, there was the exact same way to finish it. I don't know. I just I thought it might have been interesting to take a bad mood and you can't solve someone's own bad mood the same way every single time. Like if someone's in a bad mood, it may be different. But I don't know. I thought they were okay. To me, they were one of the weakest. And panic attacks were really cool, but they were annoying to fight. I thought they were really
Yeah,
hard.
yeah. No, Panic Attack was probably my favorite because I got to use pretty much I got to use most of the different kind of powers when it came to fighting them, and it took a while, but their design was cool. They were strong. They definitely did damage on me every time I fought one, but it was definitely intense.
Yeah, no,
Leave
100%.
me on edge.
Yeah,
Yep.
no doubt. And then towards the end of the game, when they started throwing multiple at you, that was real. That was pun intended. That was real panic inducing too.
Yeah, exactly.
So, kind of taking the idea of which enemies you fight and how they represent the level and the character you're supposed to be playing inside the brain of. I guess we can move into like our spoiler section now, which from this point on, all spoilers are fair game. So if you're listening, jump on out if you don't want to hear spoilers. I think as a first time player for you of the series, it was kind of nice jumping into the very, very start of the game and having like a refresher, a crash course on the story up until this point, wasn't it?
Yeah, it made me that's the first thing I was worried about when I was going to just start playing this game because I was excited, but I was like I don't have time to play the first game. And yeah, no, it just like you said a crash course on the first game. It kind of caught you up and this game just kind of led straight off of the first one. Actually, what it was like 3 days or something like that after the events of the first game.
So it's kind of cool because I don't know if you remember it, and like I totally forgot it existed until this game brought it up. So there's the first game, and but then there was also a VR spin-off for PlayStation.
Oh, yeah, I forgot
Is
about that.
Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Madness, into the Rhombus of Madness, something like that.
Yeah, it's
So
something
it's
rhombus.
yeah, so it's Psychonauts 1, the Rhombus VR game for PlayStation, which those two took place, I think, immediately after each other. And then
Okay.
Psychonauts 2 takes place immediately after that. So, yeah, the story between the first one and the second one is, like you said, is like 3 days or something like that. But in reality, it took 15 plus years for the whole story to be told up to this point.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, so I never played it. I know you had a PSVR. I'm guessing you didn't play it though, right?
Yeah, I never ended up because I was not really into Psychonauts because I mean it wasn't until I saw how Psychonauts 2 really looked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it wasn't until I saw like gameplay that made me interested in wanting to try it out. Uh, no, that's why I had a PSVR, but I just never picked it up because I wasn't a Psychonauts fan.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I know it came to PC as well. And I have a Vive, but I don't know if it supports the Vive because that's the issue with VR on PC is that like there's so many different VR headsets, and some games only work with some things. It's like if you have an Oculus, you have to use the Oculus platform. and I think you have to mod the game sometime. I don't know, but it's one of those things that I skipped over it because just wasn't appealing to me at the time. Maybe someday I'll go back and see if I can play it, especially if PSVR 2 comes out and you can play PSVR 1 games.
True.
But yeah, I love how, yeah, in the very beginning it gave you a little animation and caught the players up. So as someone who didn't really know much about the story, did you feel lost at all, or did it do a pretty good job of throwing you into it and not totally overwhelming you?
As at the start when I saw the just like how it overviewed the original games, I was a little bit lost when I was first starting, but as the game progresses, I understood each character's role. I understood because they kind of talk about the first game. They kind of have like they talk about their relationship with Raz and everything, and I just kind of understood at that point from just playing through the game.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I can totally see how you'd get lost. I think it's one of those things that someday I think you'd really enjoy it if you went back and played the first one, and it kind of backfills some of that knowledge. But yeah, I agree that it did a pretty good job of explaining like the main story points and everything. So to kind of, I guess, because there's a bunch of levels and I don't want to spend too much time rambling on about every single one. I think I think it would be kind of fun just to pick our few favorite levels and talk about those.
Yeah, that's good.
If you want to go first, you can say your favorite and then say your second favorite and like what you enjoyed about them or whatever.
So my favorite level in Psychonauts 2 was probably the Psy King's Sensorium. Is that the
Sensorium?
level?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I think that's
Sensorium?
how you say it.
Yeah, it's so in this level, you're actually in the brain that you find that there's a point in the game where you have to go grab a brain from the lab and you bring it back and you find out that this brain that you ended up uh, finding was the brain of Helmut Fullbear, who is voiced by Jack Black, and the whole character has the personality of Jack Black. Jack Black throws himself in the role,
Yeah, 100%.
and and in the it definitely is Jack Black because in the brain, in the kind of mind of Helmut Fullbear is it's a whole like music festival kind of like Woodstock-esque, very trippy level that's you have to get these band members all back together that are all like your five senses like t touch, taste, smell, sight, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And just the whole level is so trippy, and you have to manipulate light into like rainbows that you can make into bridges that you can walk across, and just the whole level super exciting.
Yeah, no, I agree, and might as well say it. That was my favorite level. Also, I think they nailed it out of the park. It was a lot of fun to play. It was funny. The whole, like you said, taking Jack Black's like own personality and making a level out of it and a character for it. I think just fit really well. I couldn't see him playing anyone else. I just I I don't think he would have fit as any other person.
And no, I don't think so either.
And it's one of those. I think it's one of those rare cases where kind of like uh, Brutal Legend, where he played the main character in Brutal Legend. I don't think I could see anyone else playing that character either. Like it worked so well, and I was
Mm,
genuinely surprised to see it work that well.
yeah.
And a kind of an interesting thing that I didn't see coming. Maybe I was just ignoring it up until the end of the game, or not ignoring it, but just wasn't paying attention to the signs or whatever they were talking about. Jack Black's character Helmut Fullbear was married the what's his name, Bob Zanato, the
Yeah.
one of the other founders. I was like, oh, okay. who's brother? I think he's brother, or I can't remember how he's
I
related, but he's related to Truman Zanotto, who's the current head of the Psychonauts. But it's
yeah,
interesting, like, oh, an openly gay couple, cool. Like I was, it's one of those things you see and you're like, oh, cool, okay. I'm glad that we're actually, the world as a whole is comfortable to tell stories like this now, that they don't have to keep it hush hush or just not tell a diverse, interesting story.
exactly, right? That's like I mean, when like Last of Us 2 did that, everyone's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, this is crazy." And now it's just like it was just in the game. Like it was just like that they just had a uh same sex relationship just in the story, and it's just like, "Hey, it's
Yeah,
2021. It's great. You don't have to make a huge announcement about it. You just throw it in there."
exactly. Yeah, it was very little fanfare. I mean, and I think that's what I appreciated about The Last of Us. The Last of Us 1 DLC had it in there. Left Behind, I think it was called,
Mm.
where Ellie actually, I think, I played through it, but it was a long time ago I played through it. She had her first kiss with another female character in that game who was her friend at the time. I don't remember the exact story. It's been a long time, so don't attack me. But yeah, that was the first. And I remember people were like, "Oh my gosh, they're doing it!" And then in the second game, Last of Us 2, it was way more like blatant because it was integral part of the story. And I hated how people were like, "You didn't have to do that." It's like, no, like that's the story that's being told. Like, chill. And same with this,
Right.
where it's just part of the story and it works. It's not like it's being forced. There's nothing heavy-handed about it. It's just part of the story and it works really well. And seeing them reunited at the end of the game, granted, because we had to grab Jack Black's Helmut Fullbear, his character, grab his brain and stick it in a random person's body. Bunch of weirdness ensued, but
Yeah. Yeah, that I thought it was interesting because it was a completely different body type, size. Like, he wasn't some like super buff guy that you threw it into. You threw into the body of Nick from the mailroom.
yeah.
It's
And for the
good.
life of me, I can't remember Nick Johnsmith, who was the mailroom guy, whose Fullbear's brain was put into his body, who didn't have a brain. Really confusing. Was actually played by Elijah Wood. I had to look it up, but 100 like he was voiced by Elijah Wood, which is really cool.
Yeah, I remember seeing some PR things with Elijah Wood relating to this game during like E3. So it's good that he got a role like that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm glad he was able to be part of it.
Yeah. So what was
So
your second favorite
yeah,
level?
so my second favorite level, whew, if I had to pick, I honestly think because I loved all the things at the end of the game where all of the story pieces were being brought together and things were being revealed, and I liked going through Ford's levels, Ford Kreller, going through all of his things and how
Mm.
he had his different personalities, and you played kind of through his levels. But I honestly think just for the sake of like how funny I thought the concept was when you went into acting head of the Psychonauts, Hollis, when you went into her brain, that was so funny to me. Where you first go in the classroom environment and she teaches you how to connect thoughts together, and then Raz takes that and takes advantage of it and connects thoughts together, like, oh, money and risk are good things. Do them together, and he's trying to connect these pieces together to make her want to go to the casino, and it inadvertently makes her a gambling addict. Now, gambling addiction's not funny, but in the context of this story and how they did it, hilarious.
Yeah.
So I think to me, and the fact that my favorite bit out of the whole entire game was when when the skeleton couple, they're like, we want a baby, and they kept bringing up the fact that they're so wealthy and they just like they can't have a baby, so they're trying to buy a baby at this casino place. And they're like, "Oh, we're so wealthy," but we don't like talking about it. But they kept talking about the fact they're really wealthy. That was my favorite bit in the whole game, hands down, and it cracked me up every single time I thought about it. So I think for that reason alone, and the fact that I loved the idea of connecting things together and rewiring people's brains, that's my second favorite. I absolutely loved that level too.
I see. Yeah, so I would say that my second favorite. So I have like a favorite environment that you're in for like a little bit on one level. But I would say that my second favorite was probably Bob Zanotto's brain.
Really?
Yeah, because I love that there were three different like what they were like wine bottles because he had that drinking problem.
Oh,
And
oh my gosh! I never picked up on that. I was like, "Oh, these are just like messages in a bottle." I didn't even think that they were
yeah,
wine
no,
bottles.
they were corked, so you had to take them out and then uh and then as you walk through it, some of them were so like there was one where you walked down a hallway and then it went around in like a spiral, like so you walked around in like a 360 like 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 three times, and then I was like, what the heck is this? How is it loading this? I'm like, how is the hallway like
Oh,
as
that's
you're
right.
and I was like, how and I walked backwards also through it because I was like, how is it doing this? This is incredible. So, like, how is that programmed? I was thinking the whole time. I'm like, that is crazy. And it really gave me those in that level specifically with those kind of things, it gave me those heavy Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart vibes where it was like the loading was so seamless of you like going from one kind of crazy environment through a door or something right into another, and it's just like how did it load this quickly?
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. It really does feel like it has the potential to be Microsoft's uh, Ratchet and Clank, because obviously it's wacky and out there, and kids love it, adults love it. There's humor for everyone in it. But you're right, like it is fantastical enough that you could make something just outright bonkers. I mean, you kind of had that in this game, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm right there with you, where I could totally see this being like a Ratchet and Clank style thing for Microsoft.
Yeah, and I definitely hope that they put time into making another Psychonauts in the future because you definitely could make another one of these games and have just the creativity of the levels. I can see them doing new concepts that maybe couldn't make it in this game, but like that that uh that that level in particular was super trippy to me. But uh, uh my like runner up for that would probably be the Ford's brain when he was in the mailroom with the big mechanical mail sorting robot. It was him, but
Yeah,
like a robot sorting out the mail. That was kind of fun, jumping from letter to letter.
yeah. No, I really did like that one too. I thought that was a pretty unique thing, and it brought that kind of like frustration where in the beginning of it you had this letter and you had to go send it off, uh, and basically like reawaken his brain or whatever, these memories that he's been suppressing. And that robot kept going, "Oh no, you're supposed to be here," and you had to chase the letter throughout this whole big mailroom. I thought that was pretty funny, but even if that can be kind of annoying sometimes.
Yeah, I know. And it's kind of funny because we're talking about these levels, but how did you treat the figments in this game?
Oh,
That's something that
the
we didn't. That's something we didn't mention earlier.
oh, that's right. Yeah, the collectibles, the little. I
Yeah.
tried to collect every single one I found. It's a little hit of dopamine when you collect one. You're like, oh, okay, I gotta go find more. I gotta collect them all. I did pretty well. There was a few levels where I was missing probably like 15 or so, and those were like that was the bad levels. But otherwise, I was missing 2 or 3 or 4. So I tried to get most of them.
Yeah, so for me, it would like I would see them and collect them if I saw them. So like even if it was on a platform to the right off a ways, I would still take my time and go get it. like go out of my way. But levels that, because it showed like the total counter for the level at the top right,
Mm-hmm.
and if it was like 230 something, I was like, well, I'm probably going to miss one and I'll be frustrated by the end. So I wasn't taking those levels like incredibly serious with collecting them. But in the end, I had multiple levels, like you said, where it was like 15 I didn't collect, and I believe that those were just ones that blended in really well with environments, because there were some that I was just like, where I went one direction, I was like, oh, I'm gonna backtrack real quick. I backtracked. I was like, this tree is a figment and it's huge, it's
Yeah.
massive. I'm like, I didn't see this. I thought this was just like a glowing neon tree for a minute.
No, yeah, I'm exactly. I'm right there with you. That happened to me a couple times too, where I remember distinctly in Cassie. I don't remember her last name, but she was the one that had basically the big library, more or less, and you were jumping around books and things like that. I remember there was one figment I saw in the distance, and I was like, "Is that like part of the book cover?" And then I saw it moving. I was like, okay, no, it's a figment. How the hell do I get up there? I was like, I was like, there's no way to get up to
Mm.
that location. I was like, so there was a few times like that where I'm like, I have no idea how to get over there. So I would just go about my day and be like, okay, well, I know I'm going to miss that for now.
Yeah, that level in particular, I that's the level I collected the least in, just because of how you had to get around the level hopping on the boats.
Mm-hmm.
I was like almost every boat had a figment, but it
Oh,
was
you're
like,
talking about the boat area in particular.
yeah, yeah, and it
Okay.
was like I couldn't. I was like, I would have to take my time and jump up on the boat, get off on the next platform, jump on the next boat, and there was like 10 boats. I was like, nah. I'm like, I'm not gonna waste my time doing that. So, but that level also, they had an entire like giant ship that was just a huge single figment, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa.
The one in the middle between all those other boats.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
went out of my way to get that because that one was just huge. But I was like, what the heck? I thought that the figments throughout the game were just going to be all the same size until I saw things like that, and I was like, oh my gosh. Which made me question, like, some of them I missed probably were just tiny ones.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
no, yeah, and it definitely it's funny because that mechanic is identical to the first game. Where I think 2005 you had a few collectathon games coming out still, so this kind of fell into like the end of the collectathon era, where definitely the 90s, early 2000s was a collectathon time, and I guess 2005 is still early 2000s, but this it's just kind of cool how in 2021 this game came out, hit the ground running, and I was like, here I am, all for collectathon. I'm for it.
yeah.
But do you have a level that you didn't like, or you're like, it's just like it didn't click with you, or you found frustrating, or for whatever reason? Because they were genuinely like all really good, and I did enjoy all of them. But I do have one that like I don't know, I was kind of like meh about.
I think if I were to be honest, by the time I got to Cassie,
Mm-hmm.
that was probably the one that I was probably the least enthusiastic about. I was like, huh. It fell in a part of the game where I was like, I thought I was coming up to the end, and then it was like, oh, well, it turns out that this person exists, and I guess it was a bit longer than I would have liked for the kind. It was just more of the environment, and I was
Sure.
just like, I wasn't the most like in, like excited for it. So,
Yeah, no, I got you. And it's interesting though because I have similar sentiment because that was definitely once you got towards the last 3 or 4 levels, like there was no like change to the order you did them because funnily enough, I for sourcing some of these notes that I took for guidance sake for this episode, I found out that you can actually do these levels in different orders.
hmm.
So like I don't know if you like on the according to the notes here went in this order, but when it came to the Ford levels, I didn't do the haircut one first. I did uh the cook off one first. and then I did the bowling one, and then I did the haircut one. So it's weird because you could change the order of some of those, and as long as you had the things to get into the level, like it didn't matter. So there's a bit of flexibility and freeformness to the middle part of the game that you can kind of go and do them in your own time. And I did all the psychedelic stuff before any of the forward levels too, which I don't know, it just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, the cook-off wasn't Ford. It was
Oh, that was
it was
Compton.
the guy
That's
that was
right.
like in
Sorry.
yeah, was like locked away. It
That's
was
right.
the male. It was the male one that I was talking about earlier. It was the
Oh, that's right. It was the male one. My bad.
yeah. So which order did you said you didn't do
So
the haircut first one first?
no, I didn't do the haircut one first. I did the male one first, and then I did the
Gotcha.
bowling, and then I did the haircut.
Okay, yeah. So I went haircut first because I was like, I thought I could maybe change up the design of Raz in there. So I was
Yeah.
like, I won't go in there. So I did that first, and then I did the cook-off one, which I really enjoyed. That was fun. It was like just a big game show. Or no, that was a cook-off. Sorry, now I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
So the cook-off is as a separate level. I really enjoyed because it was like a game show. But the bowling ball one was fun because just riding on top of that reminded me of like Mario Galaxy.
Yeah, no, totally. That's the first thing I thought of too. I was like, "Oh, this is just like Mario." And I also
Yeah.
thought of the level in Skyward Sword that we just played with the lava one where you're rolling the big rocks around.
Oh yeah.
I thought of that too. But yeah, the strike one was okay, but I felt kind of let down by it. It was probably the most boring to me. If I had to pick one, that was like my least favorite. Honestly, it was cool, but like I don't know. I just didn't really feel I got to that point, and maybe that was my point in the game where I was like getting pretty close to the end, and I was just wrapping up the forward levels, and I was like, okay, well this one's kind of a dud, and I didn't really feel too enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, I agree because it was like the ending of it was all like the same where you had to pull like a shard out of his brain because his brain was damaged pretty much.
Hmm.
And by the time I did the first one, I was like, oh, this is cool. Then I did the second one, which was the bowling one, and I was like, by the time I got to the end of the bowling one, I was like, I'm pretty sure I just took a break, stopped playing it at that point. But then when I got to the last one, which was the mail sorting one for me, I was like, oh, the environment brought me back into it. I was like, oh, this is cool. I got the last shard and I was like, oh, okay, now something's happening, and I got back into the game. Like there was just a few parts like that where it's like I kind of started to fall off, but I was able to just get back into it.
Yeah, and I kind of share that sentiment too because it wasn't that the game was super long or anything. It was it was what 13 hours or so, give or take,
Yeah,
to
I don't know.
play through the whole thing.
It took me a good bit of time, maybe like 20
Okay,
hours.
okay, and it may have been about the same for me. I can't quite remember, but yeah, it would definitely. There were parts where it kind of hit a lull, and I was like, okay, well, we're gonna finish this level, and I think it probably lined up about the same as you, where I hit Cassie's level, and I get we had to use her to clear the bees away from that particular machine or whatever, and so it was still fun, but it was more like, yeah, I got to do this again.
Mm, yeah.
But like I said, overall, I think all the levels were really fun. They were all pretty cohesive. You got a ability, used it in the level, used it in the next level, got an ability, and etc. and so forth. But yeah, I thought that all the levels were pretty fun. Was there a boss that you fought that you had a really good time with? The last boss or one in the middle of the game?
So I know that the last boss was a lot of fun for me, especially when you because like everything that was happening was super intense. The people, the interns that you were with were came to your side to help fight. And then uh and then at the very end it was like a Godzilla spoof.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. It was funny. You kind of teased that for me a little bit before I went into it. You're like, oh, have you fought the last thing yet? It's really cool. I'm like, no, I'm not there yet.
And then you got there, you're like, whoa,
Yeah, I was
this
like,
is
what the heck? You just punched this lady off a cliff.
Yeah, I like that kind of ending for games like that because it's like the fight before it is like pretty difficult. Like
Yeah.
I went through it was like a what's it called? Like I don't remember what the thing was called, but it was like basically a fairy in Zelda where you could keep it in a bottle where you died and it regened your health
Oh,
all the way.
the fluff things. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That was I had to use one of those once while I was fighting that boss, which I got an achievement for.
Yeah, I
But
think that's where I got my trophy for that too. Is on that boss also.
yeah, because it just takes you a minute to realize how to fight it. But it's like right after you finish that difficult fight, you go into this last phase where it's just easy and it's just like it's all comical. Your grandmother is yelling like you or not your I guess in the story she's not actually your grandmother.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like cheering on like go Pooty go and you're just you go and just punch her off a cliff like you said. Good.
Yeah, yeah. It was really cool. I did enjoy that, and the big twist being that like Raz's actual grandma and grandpa were killed back during a big flood that was caused by the big bad Maligula, who, like you said, you punched off a cliff at the very end of the game. And it ended up being that your grandma was one of the founders of the Psychonauts. Well, the woman who was your family was made to believe was your grandma. So more or less, it's still Raz's grandma. He's gonna treat her like it's his grandma. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it was interesting. I honestly didn't see that twist coming. Where I'm like, oh shit, it's actually his grandma is this lady, and this lady is Maligula. So it was a bunch of
Hmm.
it was interesting to see the story come together and be like, oh, it's a big cover up essentially.
Yeah.
That everyone covered things up, and that the original seven Psychonaut founders, ruined their lives more or less because they were trying to cover all this up and make things right and make things fixed. So yeah, it was a really interesting story that all came together, and the levels and the enemies and everything complemented it really well.
Yeah. I agree.
So, do you have any final thoughts, or do you want to bring anything else up?
No, I think I ran through all my points. It's
Cool.
yeah, no, it's I in the end I say it's a great game. You should check it out. You don't have to play the first game, and if you have a next gen Xbox and Game Pass, it's definitely a game that runs very well. I really shows what the hardware can do. It's really good.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. It's one of those moments where it's like, oh man, I wish I had a Series S, because my PS5 is going to be my powerful next gen system, but the Series S is definitely more than capable, and this game kind of shows that, where it runs at a pretty high resolution and at 60 FPS, and then even has the 120 FPS option. Like that's really impressive. And then, like you said, it's on Game Pass, so it's free. It's just their game.
Exactly.
It's just there.
Yep.
Yeah, and if your only platform is PS4 or PS5, and you are interested, go ahead. It's one of those things where I think the game is definitely worth it. It is really fun. All right, well, cool. Thanks for joining, everyone. Hopefully, you enjoyed this episode. It ended up being a lot longer than I thought it'd be. I didn't think we'd talk for as long as we did.
Yeah,
But I think that's just one of those things where great games, spark great long conversations.
I
So
agree.
anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. We will come back before too long with another episode. We already started the next game we have planned. I guess as a little teaser, it is a sequel. It is a more recent title, and it's a series I love very deeply. So
That that's for sure.
that's for sure. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll come back at you with another video before too long. So take it easy, guys.
See you.